No, stop. Hello, my tinglings. I'm gonna get started in about 5 minutes. I'm just starting ahead of time to make sure everything's going okay, so just bear with me while I get everything set up. Why is it doing that one? Well, that is not what it should look like. Okay. It should be the other camera. Why is it not using the front camera? Okay. Well, maybe I'll just do it this way. Nope, don't do that. Okay, and to that direction, turn that way. Let me move you. Nope, a little more. There. Takes a little while for it to come up. Okay. Hello, Milico and Julia. Glad to have you here. So I'm going to start in 4 minutes. So if anybody comes in wondering where I am, I'm going to come back in about 4 minutes, and that's when I'll get started. I need to grab some water and a couple things. So I'll be back in a couple minutes. Okay. I'm tired. As you may know, I'm training for a half marathon the end of November. And today, well, when I planned this to be on a Sunday, I was doing my long runs on a Saturday. But then when I started, what happened? Anyway, we were having a rough day one day, and we didn't get out running. But we're eventually going to need to shift over for a Sunday because we were going to do our race on a Sunday. And so, and anyway, so that just kind of was convenient. We're like, okay, we won't run today, we'll run tomorrow and push everything back. Well, I didn't really think at the time that I had scheduled my book club to be on a Sunday, and I'll probably want to run on a Sunday morning. But I actually felt really good on the run today, so that was good. But anyway, you should not be like that. Because it's showing. No, let's do. Trying to get this so you can see just the edge of the 3DO barely. It's a problem with the current when I have it set up. I should have done this before. Anyway, there we go. Good, okay there. Just turn that way a little. Hello, Tim. Glad you're joining us. And yeah, okay, good. I just wanted to make sure our camera looks good. So there's a slight delay between when I am talking and when I can see your messages coming through. Meaning, obviously, I'm recording and then it processes for a little bit of time and then it's going through. What am I even saying? Anyway, so it'll be a little jilted, this discussion back and forth as far as the book club goes, but we'll just see how it goes. So, I dropped something. That wasn't too loud though, hopefully. So, got our book, Divergent. Did anybody actually read it? Or has read it before? Very curious to see if anybody joined in. Otherwise, I'll be probably monologuing a bit more, but if anybody did read the book, I am curious to hear, well, your thoughts. I'll try and give a brief kind of overview of certain things that I'm going to talk about anyway, so that hopefully everyone can kind of join in the discussion, even if you haven't read the book. So, the book, for those who haven't read it, is a dystopian novel set in the future. It doesn't actually say what city it's set in, although it's believed to be Chicago, or Veronica Roth has revealed it's Chicago. Not sure exactly, but I think it's maybe in one of the later books she actually reveals that it's Chicago. Anyway, the whole idea is that it's a post-apocalyptic novel. Oh, good. Yay, I'm not the only one then. So it's a post-apocalyptic novel. And kind of the way that they've established a new world order after the apocalypse, anyway, whatever is happening, was the development of 5 factions. So the 5 factions you have are Abnegation, Dauntless, Amity, Erudite, and Candor. And so, they kind of have key traits. It's basically that the people who think that a particular trait is what makes the world a good place all join a particular faction and do work within that area trying to make a good society, basically. And then there's different roles for each of the factions. So you have the Abnegation. They're very outward-facing, very like this. They believe that selfishness is the evil that kind of makes society bad, or, something like that. And so they're all about serving others, being selfless, and not being corrupted by power and that sort of thing. Then you have the Dauntless, who care most about bravery and courage, and think that being a coward or having fear is kind of the worst ill, and that a lot of people cause issues by weakness and fear. Then you have the Erudite, who value knowledge above all else, who think that ignorance is it's kind of one of the big ills, and so combating ignorance by seeking knowledge is the best virtue. Then you have the Amity. The Amity are peace-loving and care most about happiness and friendliness, so warmth and kindness kind of above all else, that cruelty is kind of the worst ill. And then the last one is Candor, who believe that lying is the biggest problem that faces us, and so absolute honesty is the most important aspect to society. So you have these 5 factions, and the factions have different roles within society. Some I don't even actually remember. Candor do. I think they are like your lawyers or the Candor. Anyway, Abnegation are the ones who run the government. They've basically been selected to run the government because they're meant to be selfless, and so the idea is that the selfless people will be the best at making decisions that are the best for everyone. The Dauntless are there for security, so working on patrol, soldiers, that sort of profession, very much the Dauntless. Then you have Amity, I know, do the farming and that sort of thing. Erudite obviously does a lot of research and kind of what you would consider like what would be done in universities nowadays, so lots of learning and research and everything like that, just all about obtaining more knowledge. And then Candor, I don't remember what Candor do exactly, but I think it would probably, something maybe with law, either like being a lawyer or law enforcement. I don't remember exactly what Candor do. But so you have these 5 factions, and so that's kind of, and then basically, okay, so then when you're 16, you go into a choosing ceremony. And in the choosing ceremony, you have to choose what faction you want to join. So, obviously most people probably go with the faction that they've grown up in. So you do grow up in a normal kind of family unit. And then once you're old enough, once you're 16, then you go to a choosing ceremony where you have to select what faction you're going to be in for the rest of your life. So when you go after the choosing ceremony, you're initiated in, and if you don't make it past initiation into the faction, then you become factionless. And basically, factionless don't have jobs, so factionless is very similar to kind of homeless in our society, I suppose. But it's kind of more willful, so it's a little interesting there. So making the correct decision on what faction you go to is quite important. So we'll get into the character, but first just talking about the factions. One of the most interesting things to me is to think about, okay, if I had a choosing ceremony, what faction would I choose? So I'm probably going to ask this question twice, because I think we should talk about it right now, and then we'll talk about the aptitude test, and then talk about it again after that, because that might give us a little bit different thoughts. So, tell me, just hearing off of those descriptions of the factions, which faction do you think you would choose? See, I've thought for myself, and I've kind of, to me, out of Divergent, this is kind of the million-dollar question. It's the question that I'm always kind of thinking about in the back of my mind as I'm going through, is what do I actually, what value would I value above all else? And it's kind of hard to come up with an answer. I can feel quite confident I wouldn't choose Dauntless. They have a big penchant for lots of activity, very thrill-seeking behaviors, and yeah, just all about confronting fear. And I'm like, yeah, I think fear is there for a good reason, usually as a survival mechanism, so I'd rather stay alive. And so, definitely not, it's probably the one that appeals to me the least. I do often think about candor, because I think that while you can definitely hurt feelings by speaking the truth, I'm not denying that, you definitely can, but I think that overall then it's just, sometimes feelings are hurt worse when the truth is obscured and then comes out later. And so I think having just a pan rule of just speaking the truth all the time, there's something nice about that. It's probably the one that appeals to me the most, just because I do really, really value honesty. It's one of my very high values. Abnegation. I think there can be too much outward looking, so if you're only ever thinking about others, to me it kind of is like, well, what was the point of that? Because if somebody's doing something for me, but I don't appreciate it for myself, then nobody's actually getting appreciation out of that. I think you have to have a healthy level of selfishness. And I mean, and this is something I guess that I think probably in my younger days I would have been a little bit more, having a bit more value in abnegation and selflessness. But going through my first relationship, where kind of selflessness got me just continually, basically if you're continually a giver but you're with a taker, then you're just going to be running on empty all the time because you're never getting anything back. So on some level you have to look out for yourself. And so I think always having to be selfless, I don't necessarily feel like it actually brings about the best result. So probably would cross out abnegation there. Amity and erudite are also interesting to me. So erudite, gaining knowledge, I think, to me, knowledge is wonderful, it's fascinating. I think there's so much to be gained by having additional knowledge. You just have information, you can make an informed decision, you can inform your life. And so pushing to increase knowledge, I think, is a very noble pursuit and very good. That's obviously something that I'm, in my current life, spending a fair bit of time in obtaining more knowledge, and I love learning, really. Think it's great, and I love learning across a broad range. I don't actually really like the whole setup of our current schools where it's like, well, what they say is you learn more and more about less and less. Like, I'd rather just learn more and more and more, which is why I'm doing a second bachelor's degree as opposed to a master's degree, is because I want to learn something else. I don't want to just learn, okay, let's narrow in. But yeah, I think broad range knowledge, it's good. Obviously, as you learn more narrow bits, you actually can get a more wide-ranging picture as well, but I don't know. I think there's issues with our education system. That's a little separate. But, and then amity. I mean, I think kindness and goodness, and just kind of, it sounds really nice, but it also to me sounds a bit unrealistic. Like, I guess it sounds to me a bit like cultish, where if you're just supposed to be kind and good all the time, well, what happens when you're angry? What are you supposed to do with that anger? And so, I don't know, I don't think I could do that if you're supposed to be nice all the time. Like, I like to be a nice person, but I also like it to mean something when I'm nice, because if I'm angry with you, I will tell you, so you know where you stand with me? I don't know. So probably, overall, that sounds most like probably candor with a little bit of erudite thrown in. Hi, Game Hunter. Yeah, no, I think candor, it's, well, I just think it's a thing, yeah, I don't know, for me, I think it is something that's very important, is speaking the truth, and so much is, there's a lot of problems with not having the truth. So, that was the first little part of that question. Now I'm going to go into the second part after I was going to read the bit about so before you go into the choosing ceremony, you have a aptitude test. And so basically this is kind of a simulation, but it's a hallucination, so it feels just like real life and everything like that. So they inject you in the back of your neck, and then you're just basically seeing this thing. And so the first thing that shows up on the first choice that you have to make is, I'm gonna just use it as a reference. I'm not gonna read you everything it says here on what she goes through. But so the first thing is you have a table that appears before you. And in one basket is a knife, and the other basket is cheese. And then there's a woman behind saying, choose. And so yelling at you that you have to choose. And so in the book, Tris, the main character, just refuses to make a choice. He doesn't choose anything. And so then those things disappear. So I think in that point, though, I think I would choose the cheese, because I see a knife, I think, I don't know. My first inclination is that unless I'm chopping vegetables, I don't really have much need for a knife. Whereas cheese, I love cheese. I'll just eat it right up. If it was blue cheese, it might be a little bit of a harder decision, but if it's a nice brie, camembert, cheddar, Havarti, Parmesan, so many good cheeses. But yeah, so I think I'd grab the cheese. Apparently, well, because that's a Tori who reads the results. So then a dog comes at you, and the idea is that you can try and feed it the cheese. And so, I think I would do that. Such a vicious beast. So then the next part is, so you have this dog that's barking and comes in and, basically it's ready to attack you. And so obviously if you have the cheese, then you're trying to give them the cheese to calm it down. And presumably after you would do that, then there's a child that comes and the dog just is ready to pounce. And I think I would do just like the main character does. If I see a little child, there's no way I'm not going to try and protect a child from getting, bitten. And apparently that's an abnegation trait, but I don't know. To me, I think that a lot of people would do that for a child. If it's an adult, maybe not as much. And I feel like that might be an actual better test to see if somebody really is very selfless. I think it's a lot more hardwired in us to protect the really innocent and young, but maybe I'm just more selfless than I think. I don't know. But yeah, so apparently, because if you would jump on the dog, then that's considered an abnegation trait. And And then the next one they take you, and then you end up in a bus. And in the bus, there's a guy coming up to you saying, do you know this man? And you kind of feel like you know who he is. And I feel like, well, I would probably tell him that I know who that is. Even if, yeah, it's a little hard because it's supposed to be scary to tell him. And so I'm trying to think where I've been in that situation. But to me, I always feel like if I lie and then they find out I lied, they'll be more angry than if I tell them the truth in the first place. I don't know. So they said nobody, the results say nobody but Candor says yes to that guy, that you know the person. And I think I don't know, I think I maybe would, so that would maybe make me a good candidate for Candor. So, what about you, my tinglings? What do you think you would do with the knife, the cheese, the dog running at the girl? and the guy in the bus asking if you know this murderer. Yeah, no, I agree. I think I think wanting to protect kids is, I think there are definitely people who wouldn't protect kids, but I think, especially if you're talking about having 5 factions, and probably only about 20% of the population would go into that, I would think greater than 20% of the population would protect the child. I think that's just naturally, because, well, it's also just because you understand, probably if you're taking on a dog, the dog will definitely, could definitely kill the child, whereas they may only injure you, and to me, these are kind of, split-second calculations going on in your head, maybe. I just think it's instinctual, actually, to, jump to protect the child, but yeah, I think it's pretty instinctive. So, but, what about the cheese and the knife? What would you guys do? Would you guys choose the cheese or the knife? Or would you be like Triss and just refuse to choose because you're a rebel and, don't want to be told to choose something? Yeah. Yeah, so you have it so when they come out, when they're basically, you put under your first choice that you get, a table appears, there's a basket with a knife, and there's a basket with cheese in it. And then a lady says, choose, and so you're supposed to choose one or the other. And it's supposed to reveal something about you, whether you choose the cheese or the knife. And I think I would definitely choose the cheese, but, other people could be different. So why would you choose the knife? I have to look here for a while because I know it's not going to go through to you for a bit. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I just don't think, I would think, oh, it's an aptitude test. I don't know. I just would think, if I didn't feel under threat, I wouldn't choose the knife. I would choose the cheese because I would think, oh, maybe if I need to survive a long time or gonna have, I don't know. I just think I would choose the cheese. But I can definitely understand why you would choose the knife. So then if you choose the knife, okay, let's go again. Perplexing. Okay, so she says, so, save him. Oh, apparently, because I felt like I would probably run, well, I don't know. I would think that a dog would be able to outrun me. So I don't know if I would run from the dog. I didn't really consider that as an option. Yeah, I can understand why you would choose the knife. I just don't think I would. It's just because, I don't know. I guess until the threat was actually there, I wouldn't think I need a weapon. I would just think, I don't know, I guess I would more think it might be a test of endurance, or I guess, you're going into the unknown, who knows what you're going to face. But I would think, oh, well, if I have cheese, then I can last a long time, even though, it's only simulation, but it's kind of more what I would think. Because she says, not running from the dog suggests dauntless, but so does taking the knife, which you didn't do. So if you take the knife, you'd be dauntless. So would you guys want to be jumping off? Because I wonder what else they confirm. We'd probably have to stab the dog. So if you took the knife, and then the dog was coming at you, would you then stab it? And, well, maybe take off its, I don't know. Anyway, I won't go into gruesome details, but would you actually attack, so then when the dog's coming at you, would you use the knife against the dog? Or would you take the knife, but then be more likely to maybe run away or do something else? What do you reckon you'd do? Since I wouldn't take the knife, I don't really know. I wouldn't have the knife. Yeah, it's more so just kind of what I would think. I think, and that's what, I think the whole point of that part of the aptitude test is to see kind of what your baseline assumptions are. So it's, to me, it's fascinating just, that even among us we have different perspectives and all that, which is what I think, makes it compelling reading, is thinking about yourself and what you would do, and you see the character maybe doing something different to what you would do. I definitely think I would choose something. I'm not so anti-cheese that I wouldn't pick up the cheese. I'd be like, okay, yeah, cheese. I don't know. Be easy. Yeah, exactly. No. Well, and it's also just, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And cheese is yummy. I don't know, that's, because you don't really know if it's, I guess I think of more mental challenges and that sort of thing, and so I think, oh, well, cheese will fuel my brain. If I just have a knife here and I'm supposed to then sit down and do a math test, well, that's not going to give me anything. Whereas if I have some cheese, it might give me just a little bit of fats that I need to be at my mental best or something. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting. Well, so she didn't pick anything, and then she didn't run away from the dog. What she did, so while the dog's kind of snarling and growling at her, and so she's thinking through logically kind of what she knows about dogs. And so one of the things she thinks is, she knows if you stare directly at a dog, that's considered a sign of aggression. And so what she thinks is, okay, so what's a sign of submission? How can she show submission to this dog? And so she actually does the thing that she feels the least comfortable with doing, which is laying down on the floor so that she's below the dog, so that basically she's showing a sign of submission. And so it first starts, so the dog actually then comes up and starts licking her face. And so her sign, basically her showing submission, worked for her. And so they basically interpreted that as a possible aptitude for erudite, basically that quick thinking, really valuing that knowledge and using that knowledge to benefit her. When she lied on the bus, saying she wouldn't help the guy, I didn't really say that. But then she did jump on the dog when it was gonna be going to, when it was gonna try and pounce on the girl, on the little kid. I don't know if it was the little girl. See, and with that, I would think, yeah, see, and if the dog, I would feel better as well, like, if I ended up in that situation, and I had this dog coming at me, I'd feel much better having a piece of cheese in my hand than I would a knife in my hand. because I would think, okay, I can break off a little piece of cheese, maybe try and let it know that, oh, we got, a piece of food here, and then throw it the other way, so that hopefully I'm taking it away from me, and then I can run. That's probably what I would try and do if I really think about it. I would have the cheese, break it off, throw it over, and then probably try and stealthily get away. Not too quick, don't want to make too much noise, and hope that it would go towards the cheese. I think that's what I would do. So then, okay, so we have cheese. Well, I have the cheese. So then apparently that's supposed to make me... Wow, that's loud. What was I saying? Don't remember. But, so... Yeah, so I guess I still haven't figured out, I think after the aptitude test, what I would be. And I think what's interesting is, I think you're supposed, well, so the main character, her results are inconclusive because she doesn't show, like, a strong preference towards one, and so that makes her divergent, which is a very dangerous state to be, divergent. And that's because I don't feel like I would have a strong inclination. I feel like I would... Well, I think I would just pretty much be not dauntless, and then could be any of the other four. I mean, well, because apparently choosing the cheese is supposed to be amity. I don't think I'd be amity that much. I think it'd be kind of a strong preference towards candor and erudite with, like, a little bit less for abnegation. I think candor or erudite would really be the ones that you go with. But I can't see that I would have a really strong preference towards them. Oops, sorry. I mean, the only one I could see would be candor, so I think if I had my results, I think it would probably show candor, or I would be divergent, and it would be a mix of kind of those three, those two, and then maybe abnegation a little bit as well. So, that's what I think for me. But I think you're supposed to relate to the divergence, and I do think that... because in the book, the number of divergent people is very, very slim. Very few people are divergent. And so most people fall into one or the other category. But if I think about real life, I think people are a bit more nuanced than that. I think that most people would probably have, a bit more of a rounded perspective. I think it would be hard for everyone to have a clear faction that you go to. So, yeah, that's kind of what I think. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about besides choosing factions and divergence was the concept. So one of the big concepts in the book is faction before blood. So once you go through your choosing ceremony and join a new faction, a key element there is that you will choose, like, basically your faction is your family now, and you don't really have your old family. And I feel like for people who stay within the faction that they grew up in, that's probably not that hard because it's faction and blood. And a lot of people don't actually move factions. And so I think moving factions would be a really difficult decision. Because even if you feel yourself more suited towards something else, you'd be leaving behind your family and also all the friends and associates that you've made, since the factions tend to socialize and associate together. They share a lot. And so, it's an interesting concept, though. It's interesting to me because it seems a little bit hypocritical. Because you have a faction before blood, and it's supposed to be, okay, this is all that matters. But, I mean, in the book, it sounded like they were talking about it was very uncommon for people to jump factions. Not like it would get some probably in every choosing ceremony, but probably less than 20% or something like that. And so, or well, maybe it's a bit interesting because within, I think they were talking about it being rare, but then within the Dauntless Initiates, about half were from other factions, and then half were from Dauntless. And so I'm not sure that that actually lines up, which I hadn't considered before. Yeah, so that makes me think. But anyway, let's say assuming that most people don't switch factions, then it's a huge decision, basically saying, I'm going to forsake my family. Like, you can talk to them when they have a visiting day after you go to join your new faction. And so you can talk to them then, but it's kind of, you're not supposed to show too much affection to them, or your new faction will think you're still harboring feelings for your family, and it's not faction before blood, and that may not make you pass your initiation, and so you may end up factionless, which is, it's a very severe consequence. So, for example, Triss, the main character, she grew up in abnegation, very selfless and all of that, and she's always kind of felt that she doesn't quite belong, that she has some aspects that she feels like she belongs, but other things just really don't fit her. And so she chooses Dauntless. Just interesting, her mom actually came from Dauntless as well, but then switched over to abnegation. And she doesn't discover that till later in the book. But her brother as well, who's the same age, I don't think they're twins. They might be twins, I'm not sure. But they have their choosing ceremony at the same time. So he chooses Erudite. And she thought it was really interesting how kind of growing up all along, and he was always enforcing on her the abnegation values and always seemed so selfless. And so she thought all along that he was just going to choose abnegation. And then he chose Erudite. And it was a real revelation for her, a real eye-opener. I thought there was something really telling in that moment. Just that kind of glass-shattering understanding that it wasn't because he was so selfless all along. It was basically projecting out his internal struggle with living in this faction that didn't quite match him. And so he kind of had these rules for himself, and then he was enforcing these rules on his sister as well. So I thought that was just a really interesting moment, was when he chose erudite and she was really surprised because she thought that he would choose abnegation. So I thought that was really interesting. But he actually ends up leaving his initiation because of drama going on within the society, because erudite is basically planning a takeover of government because they don't think that abnegation should be running the government, and so they're developing a serum to try and basically make it so that they can force people to go into kind of, how we said that the aptitude test, it's basically a hallucination type state. So they put them into that state so they can control what they do. So, yeah. So he discovers that and then leaves his faction and goes back to join his parents and also to warn them. And then, obviously, things happen there. So, there were, because I read a few different guides and that sort of thing, those were the questions that really kind of stuck out to me, was about faction and blood, and of course, which faction would you choose? And, I mean, I think that the society is very much set up that you can't choose no faction because there's not a lot there for the factionless, and so kind of have to force yourself to be in the mode of having a faction. So, let me turn it over to you. Do you guys have anything else that you wanted to talk about or discuss with the book? Otherwise, well, anyway, I'll give you a little bit of time there. Let me know if you have any other questions you think we should discuss, thoughts about the book, thoughts about factions, faction before blood. Let me know what you think. I'm still waiting. Well, if you're not going to say anything about that, then we'll probably end the book club portion, and we can just open it up to chat about anything you want. I was probably going to stream for a little bit longer, probably about another 10 minutes. Can't go too long today. I am quite tired from my run. Actually, the other thing I was going to tell you, because I can't bring myself to make a formal video about this, even though I have footage. We lost the grand final. Oh yeah, I don't even want to talk about that, but anyway, that's why, if you were curious, probably nobody cares because nobody watches my footy videos. No, not nobody, there's always about 100 views, so I appreciate all 100 of you who watch my footy videos, but I know that a lot of people don't watch them. So, yeah. If you want to know more about that, let me know, and I will rip my heart open and tell you what happened, but otherwise, we'll just, anyway. a very, like, it's basically, if I start talking about it, probably in a half hour I'll still be talking about it, so tread lightly if you really do want to hear about it. So, let's see, what else is going on? I have a super crazy month ahead of me, so I probably won't stream again until November, but once I'm in November, so all of my exams are right at the beginning of the exam period, which is great because I also have like the maximum number of assignments that I've ever had due around exam time, so they're all due at the same time, right when I need to be studying for exams. Super excited about that. Couldn't be more thrilled. But anyway, so after November 7th, I have a big open period of time, so I'll probably be streaming a little bit after November 7th. That's good. What are you studying, Game Hunter? Tell us all. What are you studying? Because you're just in your first semester, aren't you? What's your favorite course? What are you doing? Anatomy. Are they, what type of words are they? And when by? Because if you have a good vocab list you need to memorize, I can make a video. Radiology tech. Sounds pretty intense. Like, if it has to be by tomorrow, then, I mean, not really. But sometime later in the week, I could record something. If you send them through. Because that's the kind of thing I love to do. Help. Well, just, I don't know what to do. Probably put you to sleep while you're studying, which is always a good option. But if you are interested, let me know. Yeah, if it's not, like in the next couple days. If it's within a week, I have enough time that I can record, I mean, maybe not 150 words, but a small portion. So, yeah. Oh, what else is going on? Well, that's a lot. So I had this intensive mode of plant ID. It was pretty cool. I did learn quite a bit, and I'm super excited about it. It didn't teach me as much as I wanted to, though. But anyway, I guess I learned some. But I definitely need to look at things differently because I can see the characters, and you can see a flower, like, just immediately see, oh, does it have 5 petals or 6 petals? Bilateral symmetry, radial symmetry, and just all these things, and counting down, like, okay, monocot, dicot, and just, all sorts of things, so that's fun. Aren't there 206 bones? I was actually looking at doing a video on the bones because I needed to learn the bones. Because I was doing this research paper on the evolution of the genus Homo, so Homo sapiens, Homo ergaster, Homo habilis, Homo floresiensis. which is, there's debate over whether that should be a species or not. That was kind of the point of the paper, was to see how people disagree and all of that. So I actually watched this video by some YouTube video about bones, because I was trying to learn the bones. And then I saw a skeleton at Costco. I thought about getting it, but I think it was like $50. I was like, oh, a bit much. So I think it would be good. It'd probably have to be like a paper bone. I know, because that's what I was learning, like the bones of the wrist, and then, because what are they, the phalanges, I think, are the finger bones. Tibia, humerus. Yeah, that's good. It's probably so obviously, like, to be a X-ray technician, that sort of thing. Is that what that leads to? Probably a very relevant skill. Obviously very relevant. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, metacarpals. I remember that from my little video as well. As I don't remember all the names and where they go and all that, but... So when do you have to learn them by? Yeah, it'd be fun, wouldn't it? Because I think it'd be cool to know the bones anyway. And it's always good for me, because if I make the video, then, well, I'm learning. It's basically a way to practice as well. Monday. Yeah. That'll probably be a little too soon for me, but I'll put it on my list. Might put it into November then, because if we're not going to get it before then, well, I'll just put it on the list then. I've been having, okay, this is what you guys should help me with. My big drama right now, okay, two dramas. My two dramas right now are two videos that I put on my list that I am kind of just, just not knowing how to visually get them done. Oh, excuse me. Continuing. Done. But hiccups. Lovely. So the first one is a Harry Potter video where I was going to be I figured out what I want to do for this, which is going to be an herbology lesson, because I know a lot about plants, so I thought it'd be fun to do a Harry Potter video where I'm basically a substitute teacher. So substitute teacher coming in and either teaching about like Muggle plants and how Muggles view plants, or what I was kind of thinking about would be magical weeds, because the concept of weeds is really interesting, and I just thought, oh man, magical weeds would be really interesting as well. And just different habitats and all that, and getting to talk about it like with actual magical plants. Thought that would be fascinating. So I know what I want to do as far as content goes, but visually, obviously, we don't look like we're in a herbology lesson right now, and I don't think any of my clothes really match what a herbology professor would be wearing either. I do have... What if I have a brown top? Hello, Oliver. Thanks for joining us. What day am I up to? Let's see. I'm at about 460 videos. Oh, that would put me... what have we got? 31... 3160. Probably not quite 300. Probably should hit 300 in the next 10 days or so, I would guess. Oh, I didn't do any reading, but yeah, you did miss the part where we were talking about the book. We talked about it for about 40 minutes. But yeah, kind of ended that about 10 minutes ago. Okay, but back to this herbology thing. So, how do I make myself look like a Harry Potter witch? That's my question. Without spending... That looks... Anyway, sorry. You can't see that. All this sweat has gotten onto this shirt from... It looks really weird. Anyway, I'm getting distracted now. Because I really was not wanting to do it on a green screen, but I think I'm going to have to, so I'll be giving up on that. I was going to release it on the 12th of this month. Don't think that's going to happen. I think I'm going to have to do it in November, after my horrendous month ahead. So, but I still need your input. How do I make myself look like a witch? See, I've been thinking about ordering a wand, but that would be like $10, and then it's so much money for one video to like actually try and get myself costumed properly to... But I mean, I only really need it up here. It's mostly just figuring out what I should do. So that's my first issue. My second issue is a big issue. It's the video I want to release on Halloween. And I wanted to do a witch's spell, like have a cauldron with dry ice and stuff. I think my brain is too ambitious for my budget right now. Unless anybody has creative ideas on what I can do. Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. Looking after Halloween. Yeah, I should save it for November then. That's a good idea as far as the Harry Potter things go. I like the way you think. So, good. We'll leave that for November. See if I can pick up anything cheap after Halloween. As far as witches. Or unless you guys have an idea for... I'm gonna have to go in a sec. I'm getting a little warm in here. I think I need to get my face blasted with air. I'm very susceptible to heat, so I need to make sure I don't get heat exhaustion today. After my long run, probably need to go and eat something as well. Even though I got a lot of nutrition during my run, but 9 miles is a lot of work, so I'm sure I'll probably need to eat something soon. But I do want to figure out what I should do on Halloween. Trying to figure out if I should... Because I wanted to do this, like, kind of witch, being a witch, casting a spell on you, but, like, with this kind of grey background, I don't think that's kind of gonna quite cut it as far as setting the ambience. I mean, obviously can green screen that as well. It's just my timeline. It takes a lot longer to process when it's on the green screen. And obviously I've got a lot going on, so don't know if that'll work. Yeah, I don't know. I have to think about it. I'm trying to think what else we could do. Pulling out tons of hair. It's good. Means I haven't brushed my hair enough lately. That my loose hairs are just sitting in my head. So any ideas for Halloween? Because I was thinking about doing a Halloween party live stream, doing bobbing for apples and pin the arm on the skeleton, or, you know, I don't know, something like that. But, I mean, it's a bit hard because obviously the format is interesting. I thought baking brownies worked well. What have you guys reckoned of the book club? I thought we had an interesting discussion, but I think it is a little bit harder to obviously communicate with a little bit of a time distance and that sort of thing, because, yeah, I don't know, just a bit harder to get that real-time experience. Oh, I'm tired. What was on my list? Because I had a list of live stream ideas. Or maybe the best is just to freewheel it. I could do, because I know I've had some people request some quilting videos, so where I could just put on a live stream if I'm working on my quilt, that sort of thing. Obviously I'm talking about into November. I also want to make my own pair of Vibram 5-finger shoes, so could do that. I guess I feel a little less bad if there's loud sounds in a live stream, because I can't edit them out, so whereas if I'm doing something I have to perpetually edit it, it's a real pain. But anyway. Do it at nighttime, ghost stories. I have a visit from a ghost coming. That's one of my pre-Halloween, and then I have another ghost story video that I'm doing, because I have a whole lead up to Halloween, but the lead up was then going to lead to this witch thing. I don't know. Anyway, I think I need to go, because gotta look after my body right now. So, thank you all for joining me today. It's been lovely, and yeah, I will see you next time. Goodbye, my tinglings.